Hey everyone, welcome back to Corporate Decoder. Today we are diving into a document so dense it could probably block a black hole. We're looking at a joint proxy statement for a bunch of PIMCO funds. It's like deciphering alphabet soup. But hey, someone's got to do it so you don't have to. This joint proxy statement is basically a heads up about the upcoming shareholder meeting where they'll be voting on who gets to be in charge, the trustees or directors. It's important because it gives us a peek into the fund's leadership and what matters to them. Before we get started, if you find value in simplifying complex financial documents, make sure you're subscribed. We also have a Discord community where you can chat about investments. The link is in the description. Alright, let's jump right into it. This document is filed because these funds want your vote on some important decisions. Think of it as your chance to have a say in how these investment pools are run. The main event is the joint annual meeting of shareholders scheduled for June 27, 2025. It's a combined meeting for a bunch of PIMCO funds like PIMCO Dynamic Income Strategy Fund, PIMCO Dynamic Income Strategy Fund, PIMCO should you call them in advance. The big item on the agenda is electing trustees or directors for each fund. These are the people who oversee the funds, kind of like a board of directors for a company. They want to make sure they have your vote, so they're asking you to complete, sign and return the proxy or vote. Okay, let's talk numbers. As of April 28, 2025, which they call the record date, here's how many shares each fund had floating around. PIMCO Dynamic voted N of 44.7 million shares, PIMCO million, PIM million, and finally PIMCO 6 million. PIMCO Global Stocks Plus and Income Fund around 11.5 million. Then you have PIMCO Fund Income Fund with a whopping 171.55 million shares. PIMCO Divian eligible to be voted. Now, who actually holds these shares? PDX has 78 record holders, RCS has 343, PGP has 71, PHK is held by 173, PDI has 173, PDI has 173, PDI has 170, PFL has 88, and PFN has 101. Each fund has a slightly different set of folks up for election or re-election, and these people fall into two categories: independent and interested. Tatties, on the other hand, do have connections, usually because they work for PIMCO or its affiliates. For instance, shareholders in PDX, the Dynamic Income Strategy Fund, get to vote on Deborah Dakota's Alan Rappaport, E. Grace Van der Cruz, and David Flattham. RCS Strategic Income Fund shareholders vote on Sarah Kogan, Libby Cantrill, and David Flattham. Time for a quick check on who owns the most shares. It's like seeing who has the biggest slice of the pie. For many of these funds, Charles Schwab & Co. Inc. is a major shareholder. 10-4 PIMCO Dynamic Income Fund. They own over 24%. Other big names showing up across the funds are Merrill Lynch Professional Clearing Corp, Morgan Stanley Smith Barney, and National Financial Services LLC. This is important because these big holders can swing votes. Now, let's talk about what these trustees and directors actually do. They're divided into classes with different term lengths, so you're not replacing everyone at once. For instance, for PDX, the shareholders will vote on the Class 3 trustees this year. If someone gets elected or re-elected, their term will match the class they're assigned to. The goal here is to keep some stability and prevent any quick takeovers of the fund. These documents also define continuing trustees. Having these folks on the board means that certain big changes need a super high approval rate, like 75% of the outstanding shares, unless the changes are blessed by both a majority of the board and 75% of these continuing trustees. This table summarizes which nominees are standing for election, what class they are designated to, and when their term would end if they are elected or re-elected. It gives a clearer picture of who you're voting for and how long they'll be around. These funds have a pretty standard board structure. They've got a chair and a bunch of committees like audit, oversight, governance, and nominating, valuation oversight, contracts, and performance. These committees help the trustees keep an eye on things like finances, how the fund is performing, and whether the contracts they have with other companies are fair. The board is in charge of keeping an eye on the risks that come with managing these funds. They get reports from the company managing the investment, PIMCO, and they have a chief compliance officer to make sure everything is above board. This gives you an overview of who is running the show and what they've been up to for the last 5 years, professionally speaking. You'll see names, positions, how long they've been serving, and a quick rundown of their work history. This table shows how much money each trustee has invested in the funds they oversee. It's broken down into dollar ranges so you can see if they have a real stake in the game. Here we have a compensation table which breaks down how much the independent trustees are getting paid. They get a base amount for being on the board and extra for chairing committees. It's also worth noting the interested trustees, those connected to PIMCO, don't get paid by the funds themselves. The document also mentioned about committees. These are groups of trustees that focus on specific areas. For example, the Valuation Oversight Committee makes sure the funds are valuing their assets fairly. The Contracts Committee, they review the performance and fees paid to PIMCO and other service providers, making sure the funds are getting a good deal. The Nominating Committee plays a significant role. The procedures here detail how shareholders can suggest folks to be trustees, making the process transparent. The aggregate non-audit fees show fees paid to the auditor for other services. These are fees outside the normal audit, and they get a close look to make sure they don't mess with the auditor's independence. These are the folks who handle the day-to-day stuff, and they're all tied to PIMCO in some way. They have positions like President, Chief Compliance Officer, and Treasurer. PricewaterhouseCoopers LLP TabUSC is the accounting firm that keeps an eye on the books. The board has to say they are happy with PUC's work and that PwC is still independent. For non-audit fees, the aggregate non-audit fees show fees paid to the auditor for other services. If you're a shareholder and you have something you want to bring up at the next meeting, there's a deadline to keep in mind. Proposals need to be in by January 22, 2026 to get them in the proxy statement. It goes into detail about things like how the audit committee is structured, what it does, and how it makes sure the funds are doing things right. Now, for my thoughts assessing these PIMCO funds through this proxy statement, it appears they're ticking all the boxes for good governance. The structure seems designed to balance stability with accountability, and the focus on independent oversight is reassuring. However, it's hard to assess the individual performance of each nominee, but that will require extra homework on your end. While these funds seem to have everything in order, a key risk is always market volatility, as these are income funds. Changes in interest rates or credit conditions could really impact their performance. Overall, it's good to see that things seem well managed from a governance point of view. Of course, future results are not guaranteed, so always do your own research before investing. Alright, that's our deep dive into this PIMCO proxy statement. What do you think about these funds and their approach to governance? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you found this analysis helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives. Don't forget to join our Discord channel, linked in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.